Thanks for stopping by. I recently finished King of Crows by Libba Bray, and this is the fourth and final book in the Diviner series. And honestly, I felt so many things reading this book. I enjoyed it. I hated it at some points because it was just so accurate and it was kind of heartbreaking. Loved it all. Anyways, this does get into a little spoilery, so if you have not read The King of Crows or even any of the other books, go back and read those, watch the videos. They are really good, or the books are really good. I am myself, so you get what you get with me. Thanks, guys. Anyways, I'm gonna put this down and we'll start. The party of our diviners quickly gets separated, which if you've ever played D&D, you don't separate the party. But for storytelling and stuff, it is a really good mechanic and split them up. And honestly, it gets really intense very quickly. The diviners are invited by Jake Marlowe to go to a memorial service. Sarah Snow, who was also in the previous stories, she was killed in an accident, and this was a memorial service. But really it's a trap because Jake Marlowe sets it up, and we don't trust Jake. Jake is just not somebody we trust anymore, and really didn't trust even from the very... Anyways, Jake Marlowe then puts a price, I think about $5,000 each on each of these people. Jake Marlowe puts a huge bounty on all the diviners' heads, and I think it's like upwards of a few grand, which in the 1920s was a big amount of money. Shoot, it's a big amount of money. Isaiah was talking through visions with Sarah Beth, who is a diviner in Bountiful, Nebraska, and she told them that they all need to get to Bountiful. They weren't too for sure why. They kind of like went, well, we really can't. That doesn't make sense. Well, now that the party is separated, Evie basically yells at everyone to meet in Bountiful because that's the only thing that the groups are. Jericho and Ling, who go with Alma on the tour of the all-girls band, the Harlem Haymakers, with Alma, and that's a really cute thing. So there's those two together, and they become a lot closer, which I really liked seeing Ling more familiar with some of the other diviners. Second group is going to be Henry, Bill, and Memphis, who go into the Deep South, and to me they struggle the most because with Memphis and Bill being black gentlemen, they're really subjugated to the racism and the segregation. Especially Memphis tends to have a little harder time because he lived in the city. He understands there's still racism and segregation, but there's a lot more freedom for him. Now going into the South, he's treated completely as a second-class citizen, and he does struggle with that, where it prompts him to become the voice of the tomorrow, where he starts writing poems. He's leaving them all over the place where they go on train cars and restaurants, and then he actually starts sending some of the poems to Woody in New York City to be published. And that felt so right for his character. The poems that are there, they're very deep. They have such a good balance of making sure that other people would feel anonymous. Then we have Evie, Theta, and Isaiah, who get separated, and starting off really strong, they have to go rescue Sam from Jake Marlowe, who was captured at the end of book 3. With him being captured, and he was used as, it got really intense, like they're using him on experiments. But we also learn more about like what Jake Marlowe's plans are, so that was very satisfying. Sorry, Sam, but it was a good plot. They go and rescue Sam. They're unable to rescue Miriam, who is Sam's mother, who is still alive, which was really exciting to see and like have their little reunion. That it was very sad, but really good all at the same time. So, I mean, it's kind of what happens. That group then joins the circus that Sam was a part of, which I honestly thought was a lie until we see it, because Sam's a big liar too. So I was actually really surprised to see that it wasn't a real circus. Everyone does end up using their power in some way. Ling dream walks with Henry, trying to figure out where they are to try and communicate. Memphis' power is still one of the most notable ones because he is the Harlem healer. So he starts to heal some people, and that makes both Henry and Bill a little anxious because it's such a notable thing that it would most definitely be noticed first, and their chances of getting caught are much higher. There are quite a few almost, like some close calls that they definitely have more than the other ones, I would say. Ling also discusses her relationship with Alma, which was a really cute part of the book, and also described that things are not linear and they don't always have to look like someone else's relationship. Then Jericho also gets a nice little crush and has a relationship with Lupe, who is one of the other girls in the band. So that was also a nice little cute thing. There's so many cute things that happened through this book that it just also made it so, like, you see their character growth when they're separated. Like, that's really the big thing, is like you see Ling and Jericho becoming more friendly and actually start talking. But then you also have the chance of Bill and Memphis having to kind of reconnect and learning about Henry and his anxiety as a gay man in the 1920s. Evie uses her power in the circus as a clown, which is very funny because we see Evie always dolled up. She's very prim and proper, but as a clown, she wears grease makeup and baggy clothes and goofs around stealing people's things, reading them, and then would tell the fortune teller a little bit about these people's lives to kind of as part of the skit. And I really enjoyed seeing that because there was like a little bit of a darker side and a little bit of a darker story with Evie, and it was really nice to kind of see Evie actually accepts the circus more as her family. Theta uses her skills as the dancer, prevalently through the whole, as like hiding in plain sight. She's dancing and doing stuff, so her ex-husband Roy, who is still looking for her, doesn't necessarily notice it. Isaiah is just kind of along with the crowd. He helps with the animals and cooking, and he does do a little bit of things in the shows. He really enjoys it, but he really struggles with being treated as a child. Isaiah is 11 years old in this story, almost 12, as he will mention frequently, but he's still very much a child. He misses his bigger brother, he misses his dad, he misses his aunt that they lived with, he misses everybody. And he struggles with being treated as a child from Sam, Evie, who are doing their best. Because Isaiah is feeling like this, he is leaning more towards visions with Sarah Beth, trying to talk to her, while she's continuing to urge them and get frustrated that they're not in Bountiful yet. So I just always got a really bad vibe about Sarah Beth, even in the previous books. This book has a lot more of separate POVs, like the dead who desecrate towns and take the life that is there. I really enjoyed that part of it. It really kind of goes in depth of like the dead would go into a town along with the King of Crows. The king would ask the town people some questions, and then the dead would feast. And it was interesting. It wasn't very zombie-ish. It was like very like just sucking them dry to where they were literal ghost towns, and they would just be ash, which was really kind of creepy. Most of the party, because we're still separated, most of the party still comes across them at different times, and it makes for very good creepy storytelling, which these books kind of lean into more of like being a little more paranormal, a little creepier. I do think the first one is creepiest with Naughty John. There we go, that's the name. The first one was the creepiest with Naughty John, but this one still has enough of like the creepy, like, oh gosh. And then it was just a good book. I'm gonna say that a lot. At one point, Evie tries to get a hold of Mabel, and that really backfires because Mabel doesn't want to be reached. But Evie had such a hard time with that. She reaches out to her through the medium, Mabel then becomes a crony of the King of Crows, which was so sad to see, because then Mabel goes into all the dreams of Henry, Ling, and I think it was Isaiah, go to Gideon, Kansas, which is really close to Bountiful, Nebraska. Gideon, Kansas is actually a real place. I looked it up. I don't know if Bountiful is, I would assume so, but these are also in the early 1920s, right before the Dust Bowl, so they're still pretty prosperous. We have yet to have the massive Dust Bowl that happens. They meet in Gideon, Kansas, and the dead are there, and so is the King of Crows. Evie is gravely endangered. The town of Gideon, Kansas is no more, and they rush to Bountiful, Nebraska. When they get to Bountiful, Nebraska, the Mr. and Mrs. Olsen do not trust any of the diviners. Even though their daughter is one, they allow them to stay because they need people to work the land. The land is not doing good. It's definitely the 1920s, so things are on that downhill slide for the crops. Beth and Isaiah become even closer friends. We learn that Sarah Beth is about 15, while Isaiah is about 10, 11. And even through Isaiah's point of view, we learn through Isaiah's point of view that Sarah Beth has a way of sneaking up on people, which always gives him a little bit of a bad vibe, which it's such a good foreshadowing for that. It was very lovely. So Roy is still searching for Theta. There's even a bigger bounty. He's using the KKK to help find them. And last act comes really quickly after a lull, like the middle, where it feels like nothing much is happening. In that point, he's getting better. We're working on the farm, and Isaiah and Sarah Beth are taking care of some kittens, which Isaiah learns a very harsh life lesson for that. So it is they're like great big up and downs in that second act. Really enjoyed it. Roy and some of the others with the clan get onto the farm, and Theta uses her fire powers and takes care of them, which was so good to see, because that was such a good scene. Like the whole thing, so good. And we also learned that Mr. Olsen sold the diviners out to help pay for the farm. And then it's just really this big, huge downward slide, because Sarah Beth unalives Isaiah, and the Bill is then unalived by Mr. Olsen because he unalives Sarah Beth. Like, that's probably the biggest spoiler. Like, it was just a wild thing I really didn't see coming. Marlowe's machine is ready. The group is captured and put into the machine for the eye to open, so that the dead is open, that the gate that separates the living and the dead is open to where the dead can just go to where the living are. Marlowe's machine is ready, and it's just a huge downward slide because Memphis nearly goes crazy by making a deal with the King of Crows to get Isaiah back, but that obviously always backfires. Them being captured, they are then put into the machine with Miriam, Sam's mom. With all this happening, it forces the diviners to fight in the land of the dead. Ending was absolutely amazing. I really liked it. I had a suspicion that it was going to end the way it did. Jericho is our self-sacrificing, and Isaiah actually defeats the King of Crows and comes back. That was a really cool way to end the whole series. You always just really like Isaiah because he is that little kid brother that I never got to have. Last book ties everything up with a happily ever after for now, and it kind of keeps things open and it moves forward. Bray has a wonderful skill of storytelling, which I quite appreciated. The story feeling full, and the world building was pretty good, because even though it is still America and but it's in America in the 1920s. She did a really good job with her research, it seemed, and also the characters felt very full and very real. I rate this particular book a 5 out of 5, and this whole series a 5 out of 5. I loved it. It's one of my favorite series. I think I'm gonna recommend it to everyone I know. Enjoyed having you guys. Thanks for stopping by again. If there's another finished series, finished is the key word here, please let me know. I would love to read it and see if that's kind of up my alley. We'll see you later. Bye guys.